Hi, my name is Frédéric Fallet. I'm Field Application Engineer with SELTECH. It's nice to see so many of you joining the CES virtual event. It's time to start our webinar. What is the plan for this afternoon, Giulio?
Hi Frederic. Hi everyone. This afternoon we will have our partners and friends from Knowles. The true wireless market is changing rapidly. Consumer expectations are evolving and new use cases are proliferating. During this webinar, Andrew Bellavia of Knowles will share his view of broader trends. Then he will focus on how Knowles is meeting the resulting acoustic challenges. We will leave Paris to join the windy city of Chicago, where Knowles is based. So take a nice cup of coffee, relax, not too much, and enjoy this webinar, and stay safe. Hi Andy, thanks for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. The platform is yours. Bye.
Thank you, Frederick and Giulio, and thank everyone for attending today. I'm Andy Bellavia, Director of Market Development with Knowles. I've been working in this space for a long time, for about 8 years with Knowles, originally with music earphones, and then more lately, true wireless earphones, starting from the very beginning with companies like Bragi and Earin and Doppler and so on until the present day. So today I'll share with you the trends we see and the things Knowles are doing to address those. Let me share my screen. And there we go. I'm going to use some material from the Qualcomm State of Play report to talk about the coming trends. Every year they release this report, which is based on a global survey, and there's always a lot of interesting information in there. There are other people who do surveys as well. For example, VoiceBot.ai did one, and saw many of the same things that Qualcomm does. If I summarize the high-level trends they're seeing, the first and foremost is that true wireless earphones are now a mass market item. And that's, of course, why we're having this conversation today. The other thing is that comfort is rising in importance. It was earlier more about battery life, but as the battery life is going up, people are finding that their true wireless earphones aren't comfortable enough to wear for the entire life of the battery. And that'll come out in some of the survey details we talk about. Even so, people are looking for longer and longer battery life, and that's being driven by new use cases. For example, the ability to have hearing enhancement, the ability to use voice assistant. So in other words, people are anticipating using these more often during the day and not just popping them in and out when they want to listen to some music. Now, in addition to music or podcasts, video and gaming are becoming more popular uses for wireless earphones, both of the ordinary Bluetooth kind and more recently true wireless. And video is meant to be an immersive experience. And so when you're watching mobile video, you want the sound to be immersive. That also drives the sound quality discussion as well. And the same thing's true of gaming. When you're gaming, you also want low latency as well as good quality video so that the action is in sync with what you're hearing. And also, for example, if you're playing a first-person game and somebody sneaks up behind you, rustles a few leaves, you want to be able to hear that. Or if an arrow flicks by your ear, you want to know what direction it's coming from and be aware of it. As well, noise cancellation is getting more and more important. The use cases for noise cancellation have changed a lot. It was already growing before the pandemic for people commuting on trains or in other loud urban environments, this sort of thing. And now it's being driven by people working and living together in close quarters. But regardless of the specific use cases today, noise canceling is going up and up and up. And there's an added benefit for noise canceling too in hearing protection. I've seen surveys or studies that show that people tend to listen at about 13 dB above the environmental noise. So when it's quiet, that's fine, you're listening at safe levels, but let's say you're commuting on the metro and it's quite loud, you'll naturally raise the volume of your earphone to swamp out the noise of the metro. Well, you can get to dangerous listening levels that way. So with noise canceling earphones, when you lower the external noise with noise cancellation, you will naturally listen at lower volume. So there's actually a public health benefit there too, as well as being more comfortable to listen. But first and foremost, in this survey and others that we've seen as well, sound quality is the top want, the top desire for people buying wireless earphones. It's actually been that way for multiple years now, and it's gaining importance. As use cases proliferate, video, gaming, music, and the music quality gets better, then sound quality of true wireless earbuds is going up and up and up. Now, with regard to sound quality, it's not only the true wireless earphones themselves, it's the whole music delivery service. And now, music delivery, it's possible to deliver higher resolution music end to end. And so the two are actually working together with each other. You can get both in China and in Western countries, you can get mainstream high-res music streaming services like Viber in China or Amazon Music HD. Before it was more for audiophiles, and now it's gone mainstream. And there are also high-res codecs now available, like LDAC or LHDC, which is coming from China, and Qualcomm aptX HD or aptX Adaptive. So it's quite possible to deliver good music quality from the source to a true wireless earbud. So let's look at more detail about what the purchase criteria are for wireless earphones. You can see the top four actually are very close. You have sound quality, price, comfort, and battery life. Sound quality, comfort, and battery life are product features, and you can see they're most in demand, those three. Now, price is an interesting one. People call out price, and yet the average selling price of wireless earphones has been going up and up. People will pay for features. So people will pay for ANC, for example. So obviously there's price sensitivity in any buy of electronic equipment, but people are willing to pay for features that are valuable to them. So it really comes to that triad of sound quality, comfort, and battery life are being the key deliverables for a successful true wireless earphone. Now, if you look a little further down, you see a couple of interesting things. I mean, ANC is number 6 on the list. Well, you might say, well, okay, it doesn't seem so important, but that's a third of the people want ANC. That's huge. Even a few years ago, ANC was a very, very small fraction of the total. So more and more people are wanting ANC. And truly wireless is 10 on the list, but that percentage has been growing and growing. So right now, more than a quarter of the people buying wireless earphones of any kind are looking at true wireless. That's a very significant fraction, considering a few years ago it was almost nothing. So long life came up on the list, and in the survey, they asked people how many hours they wanted. And it's interesting that in China, people want 18 hours. So in China, people are already thinking about all-day wear. And in other countries, it's averaging about 10 hours, the desired lifetime, which effectively says I might use it during my work day, or I might use them after work when I'm out in the evening or so on. But that 10 hours life, the desire for 10 hours life is actually exceeding the life of a typical true wireless earphone today. So people are wanting to use them for more extended periods of time than they presently can. But the problem is that most true wireless earbuds aren't comfortable enough to wear for those hours. In the Qualcomm survey, they found that the average time that consumers begin to experience discomfort is 3 hours. And in fact, not comfortable is the biggest purchase barrier for true wireless earphones. So people want it, but they're having a hard time getting it. And so you see the same three, it's almost a mirror image of what people want, that the top four are the same. And so not comfortable, audio quality not good enough, and less than 8 hours battery life are barriers to purchase. So whoever solves those three win in the true wireless game. Now, there's also prices too expensive compared to wireless headphones, 37%. But turn that around, 63% of the people are willing to pay the price premium to go true wireless instead of ordinary Bluetooth headphones. That's a lot, actually. But you have to solve for the other three. I'll give an example of how true wireless earphones are disrupting this industry, because the headphone industry in general, because those three things, battery life, comfort, and sound quality, only sound quality is unique to traditional audio. The other two are something else. It's very easy to make a comfortable wired earphone. And of course, battery life wasn't a consideration. And so I'll take a company, a non-traditional company, Anker, in their audio brand Soundcore. Now, Anker is well known as a company who makes power banks and portable batteries for charging your mobile phone, this sort of thing. Very well known there. Well, they didn't even have an audio brand before 2017 when they entered the market. And they really worked on that triad. So if I take their flagship product, the Liberty 2 Pro, it has 8 hours of battery life, very comfortable unit. I own a set. And the sound quality is stellar. It's with thousands of ratings, it's got a 4.6 sound quality on Amazon. So they went into the market specifically attacking those three things. It also has personalized sound, and they worked with some Grammy Award-winning producers to get that sound and endorse the product and so on. So they've attacked those three areas specifically, and they are today the #8 brand in true wireless and going up. If you look at that chart on the right, there aren't many traditional audio brands there. It's a whole new ball game now, and people have to solve for different problems. And the one who does it successfully, they'll also move up on that chart. Now, contextual, excuse me, contextual awareness is another interesting thing that's coming up. There are a couple of different aspects to it. The primary one is in noise cancellation and noise pass-through. I'll use an example of Sony. They have a neckband style Bluetooth earphone that has an accelerometer in it that can detect if you're moving or not. And if you're moving, the assumption is that you're out on the street or in some other environment in which you want to be aware of your surroundings. So when you're moving, it will let some of the outside sounds in so that you can be aware. But when you're sitting still, it assumes you want full noise cancellation and will dim the outside sounds as much as possible. That's an example of contextual awareness. There's a lot of discussion now about contextual awareness with regard to voice assistants too. I don't even talk about it much here because voice assistant use through true wireless earphones, not very high today. And my own opinion is that it is because there aren't many voice experiences geared towards mobile. The kinds of things you do with your smart speaker at home aren't that useful to do while you're walking down the sidewalk, for example. But they are starting to come, especially context aware. Where am I? What am I doing? So if I ask for the nearest coffee shop, for example, a voice assistant who ascertains my direction, tells me how to get there, and offers to order the coffee in advance, perfect. That sort of thing is coming, but it's not there yet. But it's another example of contextual awareness. One that has very rapidly appeared on the chart, however, is hearing assistance. This wasn't even a thing in last year's survey, and this year 40% of the people say they would like hearing assistance, automatic hearing assistance even. And this is more like hearing aid functionality. For example, I'll give you an example of mine. Now with a small screen, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's mine, and they do that automatic. They have automatic modes. So for example, if I'm on the sidewalk and I go walk into a crowded coffee shop, I can hear the noise kind of go down and the voices in front of me pop up. Well, ordinary consumers want this. This is really a big change in thinking about hearing, because traditionally there's a lot of stigma around wearing hearing aids. However, even people with normal hearing struggle and are frankly getting tired of having to yell across the table at somebody in a loud restaurant. And as awareness for this sort of situational hearing assistance increases, more and more people are wanting it. 40% is a huge number. And that's driving a convergence between hearable devices and hearing aids. If we look at a traditional true wireless earphone or hearable, their whole focus has been on audio consumption. I want to listen to music. I want to listen to a podcast. Good music quality, so full spectrum sound. And the battery life and the comfort really needed to be suitable only for situational use. So up until the present time, for example, people were satisfied with 5 hours life because you're popping them in to listen to music on the train and then you're taking them out, this sort of thing. It was fine. And the same with comfort. You could get away with more, larger size, a little less comfortable, this sort of thing, when it was only being used an hour or two at a time. And as far as the construction, because less features, could be larger, ordinary speakers are very commonly used. Increasing in hybrids, meaning using a small balanced armature tweeter and a dynamic speaker for a woofer, we're starting to increase already. And that goes with the increase in sound quality. Now, on the other end, you have hearing aids. Their whole focus is on hearing loss mitigation. And so to save battery life, they would focus on the vocal spectrum only. They would not cover the whole treble end of the music spectrum. But that's being driven by the fact that a traditional hearing aid, because of the stigma, was required to be very discreet, and all day wear is mandatory. If you're severely hearing impaired, you don't go without them during the day. So in a unit with a changeable one-time use battery, multiple days were expected, so the battery cost wasn't terrible. And in the new rechargeable ones, they have to go 18 hours at least. If you look at the ones I have, for example, very tiny devices, and they go 18 hours easy. Yesterday, I put them in a little bit before 6 a.m. and about quarter after 10 p.m., a little after 16 hours, the low battery warning started going off. And that included a few hours of Bluetooth streaming as well for phone calls and meetings and the like. So that's actually amazing. And the connectivity is another big thing, part of the convergence. For years now, you could get connected hearing aids, first with the made for iPhone system, later with Bluetooth. Even you had to use a little pod, and the little pod would receive Bluetooth and then send a proprietary signal to the hearing aids. And now you can get directly Bluetooth connectable hearing aids like the ones I have. I can connect to a computer, tablet, phone, anything with Bluetooth. They're starting to look like true wireless hearable devices, except they have the comfort and the battery life that true wireless hasn't yet gotten to. I mean, truthfully, I forget I have mine in. Sometimes if I shower in the afternoon, I forget to take them out. And when the water hits the microphones, it's like, uh-oh, good thing they're waterproof. But that chasm is closing now, again, because more people are wanting situational hearing assistance. You can see that people who have the capability of moving the market are getting into this arena. It was huge when Apple added the hearing enhancement features to AirPods Pro with the new operating system, iOS 14. Now that's kind of a first effort because AirPods Pro weren't designed for it in the first place, and yet you can see what's coming. You can take your iPhone, you can load an audiogram into it, and you can transfer that to the AirPods Pro and get some hearing assistance and also personalization of the music. That automatically put hearing assistance and awareness of hearing assistance in tens of millions of people's ears. Then Qualcomm partnered with the hearing health software company Jacody to incorporate their hearing algorithms directly into their SoCs. That's another big move because if you're making an Android style or non-Apple product, Qualcomm is the most popular chip maker for true wireless earphones. And now any company building around Qualcomm's chips can add hearing enhancement to the device. And another thing which I think will really drive consumer adoption is Bluetooth 5.2. Now, hearing aid users for decades have had the ability to buy a device with a telecoil inside. It was originally designed for telephones back in the old phone days. It's a magnetic induction system, and there would be a corresponding coil in the telephone, so that when you were on the phone, you would actually get the audio played directly into your hearing aid, not the phone speaker playing into the hearing aid microphones. Then later people started putting them in public places. So you could go to a movie theater, for example, where they would put the telecoil loop in the movie theater and you could switch your hearing aids to hear the movie sound directly instead of through the microphone pickup, and you'd get better sound quality for the movie. Now, that system is actually pretty expensive. So you have it in some places, but not real mass adoption. Well, Bluetooth 5.2 has a broadcast capability. So you can broadcast the Bluetooth signal that many people can pick up. And it's way less expensive to have a Bluetooth transmitter than a telecoil transmitter. So imagine, for example, you go into a sports bar and the match you're watching is over there. Of course, you don't hear the sound, but you could actually tune your Bluetooth earphones to that channel and listen to the sound of the match. That's amazing. And you'll start to see this proliferate. For example, imagine I'm on the Metro. I put my ANC on, I turn on the music, you know, I am just checked out of the world. I don't hear anything except the station stops are being broadcast by Bluetooth, and I pick them up while I'm listening to my music. So that hearing aid style feature is coming to true wireless earphones as well. Now, when you blend those two together, you get a new product. You get a true wireless earphone that has to be more comfortable as it's driving towards all-day wear. You'll have the hearing enhancement with automatic or controllable modes. Premium sound though, because I'm listening to music. Give you an example, because these are Bluetooth connected. Spotify has a great voice controlled system. So I can ask for my playlist, turn the volume up, skip all by voice. Well, when you're wearing these things all day, more people are going to be doing that sort of thing, and they want good music quality when they're doing it. You're going to see ANC or occlusion reduction, active or passive. In other words, designed so you don't have that plugged ear feeling when you're wearing them for long times. They'll have to be water resistant. So if you get rained on, for example, or sweat and so on. So it's kind of evolving. The merging of hearables and hearing aid devices is merging into a new category. An example of that one is the Olive Pro, which was just announced and about to be shipping, which is actually a registered hearing aid, but with music quality. And it's constructed more like a hearing aid. Hearing aids traditionally use the small balance armature drivers, and you can, I'm trying to see if you can see it, but let's get it this way. There we go. That's how tiny the speaker is in there. Very, very tiny, and that's very, all hearing aids use it because it's so small, so comfortable, and consumes less battery power. Well, that's an Olive Pro used the same thing in a good microphone setup. And so you have a device now which is a combination unit of hearing aid and music listening device. So I want to step back just for a moment, because we're having a conversation about the speakers inside True Wireless, to share the difference between ordinary speakers and balanced armatures. Ordinary speaker, the coil is attached to the moving diaphragm. So the coil is part of the moving mass. Now, especially in very small ones, like are used in True Wireless, you have to be very careful. If that coil is too heavy, then the speaker won't be responsive. The music quality will suffer. Also, it's hard to individually match them so they're consistent from unit to unit in their sound. Now, the balanced armatures, which were developed actually by Knowles specifically for hearing aids, the coil is fixed. So the only moving part is that armature you see, or reed it's sometimes called, and the diaphragm itself. Also, each unit is individually adjusted on the assembly line, so you get very consistent output from unit to unit. Now, that kind of construction gives you very good magnetic coupling, which means you can get more output for a small size. And the stationary coil gives a lot of latitude in the design of the unit. I actually talked about on Tuesday in another webinar how that played out when doing multiple driver earphones. In the true wireless environment, what it means is that we can adapt to the more power-saving amplifiers. Hearing aids, many of them have gone to digital amplifiers, which saves battery power, but they also require a little bit different construction. And if you try to run an ordinary speaker with it, it isn't as efficient as a balanced armature with a specially designed coil for that application. We have a lot of latitude in the coil design, So it's very easy to customize the device for each particular design. And so that helps save battery power as well as making them smaller and more comfortable. And so the way that plays out in true wireless, again, if you think of sound quality, battery life, and comfort, you can have a different mix according to your own design goals. Now, I mentioned before that hybrids are becoming more popular, and the reason why that is twofold. One of them is that the difference in the character of the bass between a dynamic speaker and a balanced armature. Now, professional musicians, their goal is to have really precise, defined sound so that they can hear exactly what it is they're playing. And audiophiles, very similar. They strive to pick up every nuance of the music exactly as the music producer intended. And they'll go with multiple balanced armatures. But consumers, even though it's a little bit less precise in its delivery, consumers prefer that warmer, more full bass of an ordinary speaker. And so you can have it both ways with a hybrid design by using an ordinary speaker for the bass and a balanced armature for the treble, giving you that clarity in the vocals and in the upper ranges. Plus, ANC has always been designed around dynamic speakers. Now, it's possible to do ANC with a balanced armature. For example, the Amazon Echo Buds you see on the bottom uses a two-way Knowles balanced armature, and it has ANC in it, so it can be done. But it's most commonly done with dynamic speakers. It's most familiar to people. The chip systems work well with it. And so by going to a hybrid, you can have ANC, you can have that kind of warm filling bass, and you can have great definition and clarity all in an easy to implement system. And you can see, I showed the Soundcore product before as a two-way hybrid, and you see the Noble Audio Falcon Pro. That's actually a brand new entrant. Noble is a very famous audiophile company, and they're a great example because you can hardly buy one of their wired earphones for less than 1,000 US dollars. They're extremely well-crafted devices. And a couple of years ago, a company like that would never touch true wireless because the audio quality just wasn't close enough to what you could get with a wired earphone. But that's changing for all the reasons I described earlier. And so they've now introduced a three-way hybrid. So it has a dual balanced armature tweeter, a dynamic speaker woofer, and it's using aptX Adaptive for high-res audio delivery. Now, to be honest, if you take one of their good wired earphones and pop it into a good music source, it still sounds better than these, but it's getting closer and closer. So that if you want wireless freedom when you're out and about, you can still have really good sound quality. And of course, the Soundcore Liberty 2 Pro, very consumer-oriented device, and the sound quality is excellent. I really like the way those sound. So a hybrid is very capable of delivering this sort of sound. Now, if you want a focus on smaller size, or you're going to pack more features in there, then you can go with single or small two-way pure BA. Will be smaller than the hybrid setup, and it gives you more room to do other things, whether it's extra features, bigger battery, or smallest possible size. All those things are possible, and that was the approach that Amazon took with the Echo Buds. Now, it's interesting, you can tell that true wireless has come of age, and also that sound quality has gained awareness at consumer level because mass market publications are now writing on these topics. I mean, when does Forbes write about the sound quality of a true wireless device? It never would have happened until the present day. And it really says two things. One is that it's possible to deliver a device with sound quality that gets noticed. And the other is that it's being written about at all. If sound quality wasn't important, Forbes wouldn't write about the sound quality. And the same thing's true of CNET. So sound quality really is becoming something that people are attending to. And here's another example. This is a product that hasn't quite hit the street yet. And I know, when you think of Nokia and mobile phones, you realize that their best days are behind them, but it's still a huge company, and their accessory division has been getting better and better and more prominent. And they're releasing a new earphone, and you can see, I mean, they know which way the market is headed, and it's indicative as part of this discussion as well, that they've gone with a high-res codec, aptX Adaptive, They've gone with the dual driver hybrid setup, Bluetooth 5.2, so you have all the features of Bluetooth, of the new Bluetooth, and they have a low latency gaming mode so that you have both for movies and gaming, you have the speech and the action in sync with what you see on the screen. So they've correctly read the market direction and they're introducing a product accordingly. You're going to see more and more devices like that. And as for battery life, that was always key for hearing aids because hearing aids, like I said before, have to really, really maximize on battery life. And one of the ways they do that is highly customized ASIC. And that ASIC is very low power consumption. So one of the, outside the ASIC, a big power consuming device is the speaker, which is why balance armatures are always used because the power consumption of a balance armature is lower than an ordinary speaker, significantly so in a hearing aid. Now, if I had this conversation even a couple of years ago about true wireless, it wouldn't mean much because the SoCs in true wireless were consuming too much current for you to notice the difference in speaker power. That's starting to change now. And I'll use this example of Shanling. Now, Shanling is a Chinese company. They're actually better known for their DACs, so their audio players. But they've started making earphones as well as companion products. And their experience exactly mirrors the calculations we made. We looked at modern SoCs and did a power budget for a true wireless earphone. And we could see an 11% reduction in current with a BA because the balance armature draws less power than an ordinary speaker. Well, then Shanling released the product. They released actually two products, one with balance armature and one with a 6mm speaker. Exactly the same otherwise, only the speaker was different. And they published the life of both. And they have 6 hours with the dynamic speaker and 7 hours with the balance armature. So you can see already now the SoC power has gone down enough so that the speaker power matters. And that's only going to get more significant. I don't remember exactly what the context was, but there was a person at Qualcomm who said, each succeeding SoC generation will drop the power consumption by 30%. And of course, the processing power is going up at the same time. And you also have the Bluetooth versions improving, so the power associated with Bluetooth is going down as well. Well, as the SoC power goes down, the speaker becomes a more significant fraction of the total power budget. And so then you'll see an even greater life gain by using balance armature versus ordinary speaker. I mean, it's going to approach hearing aid style, life and size and comfort as each generation of SoC comes out. And so as a result of all of these moving targets, sound quality, audiophile earphones, true wireless and the desire for smaller size, our product line in balance armatures has proliferated to the point where we have a series for almost every application. And actually we have some really interesting things on the roadmap for release this year that's going to extend this in very interesting ways. But already going down to the very smallest size full range drivers, to tweeters for hybrids, and in multiple driver sets for more audiophile oriented earphones like the dual tweeter that's used in the Falcon Pro. And since hybrids are becoming so important, we've also now, we're rolling out pre-assembled hybrid modules so that we can speed the time to market for people wanting to adopt a hybrid system in a Bluetooth earphone or true wireless. We actually have two configurations about to be released. One of them is smaller diameter, and the other one is larger diameter with a more powerful speaker, but shorter in height. There's a couple of different configurations to suit different design goals for true wireless earphones. Now, if you want to know more, talk to us separately. There are multiple ways to reach us or me in particular at seltechinternational.com. You can very quickly reach their global offices. For Knowles, we have a section of our website dedicated to earphones and true wireless. It's called knowlespremiumsound.com. And we also have videos on these topics at vimeo.com/KnowlesCorp. If you want to reach out to me directly, I would be delighted. You can get me at LinkedIn with my name, Andrew Bellavia, or on Twitter at AndyB_Knowles. And so let's now open it up for questions. Okay, here we go. What types of BAs might be best for ANC? And that's a good question, because one of the reasons why dynamic speakers are used for ANC is you can deliver, they're larger, and with larger comes moving more air. And so you have a balance of forces there. It depends on the overall design of the earphone. So I'll use the AirPods Pro as an example, because they, in order to minimize occlusion, have a fairly large vent in front. And this, I think, is going to go with the second question as well. Any differences in design of acoustic pathway for hybrid versus BA versus dynamic? So if you have a totally sealed earphone, you'll have the bass goes flat right down to the bottom. And so audiophile earphones tend to prefer total seal. But there are consumers who find a total seal uncomfortable when wearing for a very long time. So then you might put a vent in the front. And if you're doing ANC, at least a small vent in the front helps stabilize the system. And so if you put a vent hole in the front, what happens is the low bass will roll off. And where the knee of that roll off is will depend on how big the vent hole is. And if you then decide, I really want an open feeling like AirPods Pro, you'll have a fairly large vent. But then you need a big, powerful speaker to drive that vent so that you don't lose all the bass. And then for ANC, it's the same, because now you have to have additional sound power for a noise canceling signal driving to that big open vent. So if you choose a design like that, you're going to need a dynamic speaker, and you can do it in a hybrid configuration too, because a dynamic is driving the bass into that vent hole. Now, other systems will go with a smaller vent hole. You'll still get occlusion reduction. You can play, find the ideal vent hole for the occlusion reduction balance with bass response. And then it's possible to use a balance armature like the Amazon Echo Buds did. They used a two-way device, and the woofer is our model ED. And that's actually a pretty good one if you're doing ANC with a balance armature. Either you use the ED by itself as a full range or the woofer version. And so, excuse me. And so you can do it that way. And that's actually one of the things we're working on. For years, for hearing health, we've been driving more output from smaller size, which basically means that more and more severely hearing impaired people could get smaller and more comfortable hearing aids. And we're continuing that trend today. So you're going to see further advancements coming from us with smaller BAs that have higher output. We'll change that game a little bit. I hope that answered your question, both of them. Because, okay, the acoustic pathway for hybrid versus dynamic, really, if you're doing a hybrid design, the goal is to get the tweeter as far up front as possible, because a long acoustic pathway will start to reduce the high frequency. So you'll often see the tweeter in front of the dynamic. If you're doing a pure BA, it's the same. If you're doing a small two-way, you can have them both up front. If you're doing a multi-driver setup, and here I'll draw from the audiophile space, a lot of times you'll see the tweeter closer with a closer sound path than the woofer inside. All right, questions are coming in. I need to cycle up there. Passive ambient filters can be used with BA, retaining the bass and reducing occlusion. Yes, that's exactly right. And that's another thing that comes out of the audiophile space. There's a lot of work being done in that area to give you that sort of less occluded feeling and still retaining the bass. There's a size penalty for doing it though, so you don't see it so much in the true wireless space. What is preferred, passive or active occlusion reduction? Well, active occlusion reduction is relatively new. It's also power hungry. And so more true wireless earphones are going with passive occlusion reduction than active. Because for active occlusion reduction, again, you've got to drive enough power in the speaker to perform the occlusion reduction, and therefore there's a power penalty. And there was also, the chipsets weren't capable of doing it, but you have now chipsets with that capability coming out. And you see it actually similar to active occlusion reduction is also bass compensation. So a speaker with bass compensation, let's say you have a nice, a leaky fit, you've put a little leak hole in it, but you're wearing it in your ear. And if the seal isn't right in your ear, you're going to have more leak than just a leak hole. Well, newer chipsets can actually boost the bass to account for that. So regardless of exactly how they're fitting in your earphone, they will compensate for that. And it's the same kind of solution necessary for active occlusion reduction. So you're starting to see those coming. In fact, there are others I know, but the new chip, the new digital ANC chipset from AMS will do that. So you can have bass compensation and active occlusion reduction in a true wireless earphone. So this is newer because of the chipset capability, but it is coming. All right. Thank you for an interesting presentation. You're quite welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. How would true wireless versus traditional hearing aids stand up in reliability concerning the comfort and long-term usage, especially with respect for sound quality hampering due to the pollution caused due to ear canal environment? Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot there, and those are all important things. I know from talking to people in the hearing health community, earwax is a big issue. And it's a big education issue for hearing aid wearers. Now, hearing aids have changeable filters like mine do, for example. And so if they get dirty, I can change them out. And so therefore bring my sound back to where they belong. But yeah, keeping your ear clean is obviously something to think about. And it's going to become more important in the true wireless space as well. Because as people are wearing them for longer and longer times, the ill effects of earwax are going to become more and more prominent. The testing we have to do for our balanced armature devices really says a lot. We have to test them with exposure to sulfur dioxide because that's a gas that comes from from earwax. And so you're right in that as true wireless devices go to longer and longer wear, there's more attention to long-term reliability with earwax, long-term reliability with regard to sweat, all of these sorts of things. It is a solvable problem. It's been solved in hearing aids for many, many years, and true wireless earphone people are starting to need to address those issues also. Wonderful, very insightful. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. Is it common to use dampers in true wireless compared to in-ear monitors? It's a good question, and actually, generally no. And the reason why is that you can shape the sound in the SoC itself. In a wired earphone, everything has to be done acoustically. In a true wireless earphone, the chipset can do tuning. Some chipsets will do fixed. In other words, I start with my speaker or speaker setup, and then I shape the response to what I want in the SoC. And then others will be personalized, like the Anchor Soundcore product I mentioned. You can actually give yourself a hearing test, and then it will configure the device according to your hearing response. And that actually is driving our design as well. If you look, for example, at our hybrid modules, we let things run a little wide open. The low bass might be a little higher than you as a designer prefer, and there might be a little extra treble content than you want, making it sound a little too bright or sharp. That's done deliberately because designers are comfortable reducing part of the spectrum in the SoC, but don't like to amplify it. Because if I try, for example, to boost the treble in the SoC, I will also boost the noise. But it's fine to reduce it. And so we'll deliver more of this sort of V-shaped response with a lot of bass and a lot of treble and let people shape it in the DSP. It's something you would never do in a wired earphone, which has to be, out of the, directly in the earphone has to be acoustically pleasing. The hybrid module is already in production. We've just started sampling and getting feedback now. They're going to be rolling out very, very quickly. All right, next question. Do you help support customer who wants to connect BA on Flex PCB? Yes, we do. And in fact, in high volumes, we can also produce the Flexes and mount the BAs and other devices on the Flexes ourselves. We have our own surface mount line, which actually started out putting matched microphone pairs on a Flex for hearing aids. And now we've been doing it in consumer products as well, where we can mount anything on the Flex along with attaching the BA microphones and so on. So we can provide assistance at any level, depending on how your own design and supply chain is working. Do you foresee future hearing protection feature to be embedded inside True Wireless, as similar shown one of your slides, how the chasm between True Wireless and hearing aid is closing up? So that's interesting, right? I talked about ANC as a hearing protection feature. Another aspect of that, I think maybe might be what you're thinking about is also kind of a measurement, a sound level measurement. Have I been exposed to too loud sounds for too long, this sort of thing. There are actually people working in that area now, and I expect that to come along very quickly. You see, for example, of course, I don't have a watch on, but the new Apple Watches actually will measure the sound output and will give you an alert if you're in a high sound level environment that can be dangerous. That's really interesting. And one of the side notes to that is that it's actually possible to build up a library of where things are loud. So if I'm an urban planner in a city, for example, it would be valuable to have access to the data of all of the Apple Watch measurements so I can see where the hotspots are in my city. And I would expect that that sort of thing is going to start to show up in True Wireless as well. There are professional musician solutions that incorporate that. I even did a little feature on it at the NAMM show last year. But for True Wireless, I think it's for the future. But as there's greater attention is being paid to hearing health in general, I expect to see that sort of thing happening. When do you expect to see True Wireless replacing hearing aids? Oh, that is very, very much the question in hearing circles. Now, there's quite a raging debate about that, but I think there is one thing that has to be said, and that is when your hearing aid gets severe, you will always need professional assistance. I can tell you from my own experience, at severe hearing loss levels, it's more than just amplification, because you cannot just amplify like crazy your hearing impaired ear. The ear will not take it. The ear will distort. So you can't actually just drive very loud amplified sound into an impaired ear. So you have to juggle. And a hearing aid will have many bands. Mine has 32, I think. And you can not only adjust the level of each one according to your hearing loss, but you can set compression levels of each one. So for example, in one of my ears, it's so that I couldn't take the full amplification in a certain range of frequencies. I could actually describe that to my audiologist when I first got them tuned. I said, I'm getting distortion in my ear, and I can tell you when the distortion really happens. It's when the altos get going in our church choir. She goes, okay, got it. And what she did was she set a different compression level in that spot. So when the sounds were quiet, I would get full amplification, but when the sounds were louder, it would not amplify those particular bands quite so much. So dodging the distortion. You need professional assistance to do this sort of thing. But if you have mild or situational hearing loss, yeah, there's actually a researcher and audiologist in Chicago who said, the state of the industry today is that we have a $5,000 solution to a $500 problem. And I agree with that. If you're only talking about the restaurant problem, then this sort of situational hearing assistance device is perfectly appropriate. And it's clear that that's coming. For all the reasons I described, it's coming. Now, true wireless will never replace a hearing aid in the sense that you're going to always have hearing devices that are professionally fitted, but they're going to merge together and serve people at all levels of hearing loss. And will you propose BA receiver with heart rate sensor together and flex PCB for medical control and follow? Well, the question, I mean, that's a very deep question, and I can't answer if we will ever marry the two together. I mean, we see the fact that people are working around having the two together. The question is whether there's value in pre-assembling that or having that done at the customer end. So that's not really something I can put a definite answer on today. All right, I am going to scan all the questions just to make sure I didn't miss any. If I have missed one, please tell me so in the chat. Okay, and Julio just texted me saying he thinks I did them all. All right, very good. I'll wait just a moment. Oh, here's another question, especially in a busy environment, e.g. in a music concert. Oops, I didn't quite read the whole question. How does the speech intelligibility stand up for true wireless, especially in a busy environment for e.g. in a music concert? Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. There are advanced techniques coming for separating out speech from noise. And that's something both the hearing aid people are working on and also outside companies. I'll use Chattable as an example, that apart from amplification, they're actually doing extraction of the speech signal from the noise signal. And it's only a matter of time. If you look at what they're doing, for example, it's in an app. So you can use it as an iPhone app, for example. And there's a hearing aid company who came out with a system. I'm sorry, I can't remember their name right now, but they put that intelligence in a little pod because the pod can support the processing power needed. And so you wear the hearing aids and then you have the little pod that's doing the noise extraction from speech. And so you're going to see that apart from amplification and also beamforming microphones, meaning making the microphones focus forward, you're going to see intelligent extraction of speech from noise up in the ears versus in an external device. I mean, even already acoustically, a lot can be done. Like my hearing aids do a really nice job. If I walk into a crowded pub, it's more like hearing like a normal hearing person. It doesn't have ANC, so it doesn't drown out all the outside noise. I still hear a lot of the outside noise, but the voices in front of me really pop out and are clear, which is what a normal hearing person experiences. You still hear all the noise, but you can still understand people. But of course, in a really loud place, even normal hearing people have a hard time doing that. And so you have devices today that do some noise filtering and will also focus the microphones, so all the noise behind you isn't being picked up, only the person in front of you. And that'll get increasingly sophisticated with these new techniques. Are your BA's receiver waterproof? Is it certified on the data sheet? We're actually doing that on, it varies a lot, and we also have some custom things we can do. So the small drivers without vent are waterproof already, and some of the other ones are doing special waterproofing techniques. The reason why we can't have a generic answer is because it depends on the entire acoustic system of the earphone. So the way the water enters the ear tube, what other screens or dampers are in there, the position of the balance armature, all these things affect the waterproof. But you can see it's done going way back. I mean, think of the original Bragi with IPX7 waterproof. Because they had an onboard music player, you could swim in them. So you could actually swim without any external device with the true wireless earphones in your ears, listening to music, and that used one of our BAs to deliver the IPX7. So yeah, we've been doing it for a long time. All right, I see questions coming in. When are you approximately expecting to merge between true wireless and hearing aids? That's actually an interesting question. you also have to consider the regulatory part of it, right? To be a true hearing aid, you have to get approval in the United States from the FDA or the other regulatory agencies around the world. And that won't change, nor will the need for professional audiologists. When you're severely hearing impaired, you need more than just amplification. And I'll give you my own example. You cannot just drive with very high amplification in impaired ear. The ear runs out of ability to take in that sound. So if I use my own example, my left ear is worse than my right. And when I first got my hearing aids, I noticed distortion in my left ear. And so I paid a little bit of attention, and I especially noticed I would hear the distortion when the alto section in our church choir got going. So I went back to my audiologist and I told her that. And she says, okay, I can take care of you. She knew what frequency ranges alto singers are working in. And my devices have 32 different bands. And not only can you change the amplification level of each band, but you can also change the compression level. So what she did was she increased the compression in that slice of the spectrum so that when sounds were quiet, I would get full amplification there. But when sounds were louder, that little slice would not be amplified as much to stay away from the zone where my ear would distort. So it's not optimum, but it was the best possible solution for that case. And so you'll always need professionals to be able to do that. And at high amplification levels, you'll always have regulatory requirements. You cannot put a device that can drive 130 dB in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. There's a potential danger. So there'll always be hearing aid regulation, and there'll always be professional audiologists. But when you talk about the bulk of the people who have mild to moderate hearing loss, often situational, meaning they're fine talking to people in a quiet room, but a loud restaurant is near to impossible, that's a perfect time for a consumer solution. I have a researcher and audiologist friend here in Chicago, and she said, right now the industry forces a $5,000 solution on people who only have a $500 problem. And that's exactly what she was talking about. If you have a need for situational hearing assistance, a good hearable device will do the job perfectly. And so that merging is taking place. It will never completely happen, but that merging is taking place. And for all the reasons I described earlier, you're very soon going to see a lot of devices offering mild to moderate hearing enhancement without the need of regulatory approval. One new device that's coming out is the Olive Pro from Olive Union. It's a great example of a blending of hearing aid and hearable device. It actually is an FDA registered hearing aid, but it's got a balance armature, full spectrum balance armature for sound quality, and it looks like a pretty stylish earphone in your ear. So you see the hearing aid companies and the hearable companies coming at it at different directions, serving different needs. So I won't say there'll ever be a 100% blending, but you see the markets coming together very, very quickly. All right, here's another question. How will the hybrid modules be available? And actually the modules themselves will be available, but we'll also have demo earphones based on them so that customers can hear what they sound like before implementing. And what's the time frame for the hybrid modules? The smaller one, we've actually, all the parts have been ordered to come in, and we'll have a first batch of them for sampling in a month or so. And the larger one, very similar timeline. When do you see True Wireless replacing a hearing aid device? I think I more or less covered that one. Really, that True Wireless will never replace a hearing aid device. What I like to think is that True Wireless is going to serve the market which is not well served by your traditional hearing aids. I think that's actually good. And I heard a podcast from one of the folks, I think it was Justin from New Hera, and he said he believes that as True Wireless devices serve the mild and moderate hearing loss category, more hearing aids will be sold. And I agree with that because only a small fraction of the people with hearing loss, even severe hearing loss, are getting hearing aids today. the stigma is a big problem, especially. And so now when you have more people wearing devices in their ears, used to the idea, used to being seen and enjoying the benefits of hearing enhancement when their hearing loss is milder, it's a much easier step to go to a traditional hearing aid should they need it later on in life. Do you help or support customers? Do you help support customers who want to connect BA receiver on Flex PCB? For volume applications, we have that capability. We actually have our own Flex assembly line. And so we can attach different components and balance armatures, our MEMS microphones to Flex PCBs so that you get a pre-assembled and tested acoustic subassembly. In one of your slides, you referenced Olive Pro Hearable. Is that name referencing Dr. Sean Olive? No, Olive Union is a Korean hearing health company. And so rather a coincidence. And I know Sean Olive personally. I like him a lot, but he had nothing to do with the development of this hearing aid. Difference between passive and active occlusion. Occlusion reduction, I assume. And the difference is that passive occlusion reduction is simply providing a leak so that the ear canal is not completely plugged. Active occlusion reduction is a little bit like active noise cancellation, except you're canceling the noise generated within your body that's resonating in the closed ear canal. Now, that's a power-hungry system, and so you don't see it so much. And also, until recently, it wasn't really available in a way that could be put in a comfortable form factor. But now it can be done. And there's also a similar application, which is leak mitigation. So if you have an earphone, you're wearing an earphone and you're talking, maybe you have a bite to eat, and that earphone starts wiggling loose. The SoC will detect it and increase the bass to make up for the increased leak. And so the music quality is more consistent. Both of those are actually now available. There are more than one person doing it, but the one that comes to mind immediately is AMS with their new digital ANC system. Can do leak compensation and occlusion reduction. So it's a design choice. It's easier to do passive occlusion reduction, but the active occlusion reduction and active noise canceling, together, and also leak mitigation can be done, but it costs you some size and some power. So those are design choices. What effect does the microphone have on transparent hearing modes sound quality? That's a very good question, actually. I'll tell you a funny story because when the AirPods Pro first came out, several sets were bought within Knowles and people were trying them out. And I tried them out and I was very impressed with the sound quality of the ambient pass-through. A lot of earlier hearables, you could hear stuff, but it was unnatural. I went running with one pair and I could hear that there was a car, but I couldn't tell what direction the car was coming from. And when I talked with people, they kind of sounded distant and tinny. And then came AirPods Pro and it was very, very natural. And I said, somebody asked me, what did I think? And I said, wow, the ambient pass-through is very natural sounding, almost as good as my hearing aids. And they said, your hearing aids have ambient pass-through? I started laughing. Well, that's what they do. And so it's so natural in a hearing aid, you can forget that you're wearing them. I do it all the time. If for some reason I have to shower in the afternoon, half the time I forget to take the hearing aids out. And only when the water hits the microphones do I realize what I've done. Fortunately, they're waterproof. But in the hearable devices now, are people wearing them more often? They're not just wearing them to listen to music, but they're wearing them, they're talking to people, they're engaging, this sort of thing. They want that sound to be very natural. And that's actually driving increased performance of the MEMS microphone. We've been doing a lot of work in that area. The outside MEMS microphone focus on sound quality, and the inside MEMS microphone has other requirements for the active noise cancellation, especially very high performance at high sound levels. What is the most popular BA driver for true wireless? Well, it all depends. If you're doing full range, a single full range driver, our model RAB is the most common one because it's the smallest full range driver. But if hybrids are being used, the most common one is our tweeter WBFK. Now there's a couple of people, I showed the Amazon Echo Buds using our small two-way woofer tweeter combination. The woofer is our ED, which is a little larger and a little more powerful than the RAB, good support for ANC. And a couple of other people are developing now with either the ED or the GQ with the ED as woofer for that reason. All right, I'm scanning through to see if I caught everything. Okay, I believe I've caught all the questions. If I've missed any, please do let me know. Here's a question. Any new specific BA drivers to come? Yes, there definitely are. We're not ready to discuss them publicly yet, but it's going to be a very exciting year for what we're doing. And what I would say as an add-on to that is, if you're developing a true wireless or other earphone today, talk to us. Because with an NDA in place, we can share our roadmap where we're going, and we can find the proper fit for your product. Hybrid drivers without DSP. Is it possible to change the sound signature of the new hybrid drivers without DSP? Well, we can do normal acoustic tuning to them, just like any other earphone. But it's a good question because the broad use of Bluetooth is changing a little bit what we do. Now, in the audiophile space, which is continuing to grow, everything has to be done acoustically. The tuning of the drivers put together, and the acoustic tuning of the earphone all has to be done by normal means. But in Bluetooth, you have the opportunity to tune with the DSP. Now, designers very typically don't want to amplify in the DSP, because if they amplify, they also amplify the noise. But reducing in the DSP is perfectly acceptable. So if you look, for example, at the hybrid drivers, we kind of put a V shape to it. So in other words, there's a lot of treble and a lot of bass. Now, the lot of bass capability supports ANC, and it also allows the designer to choose the music bass level that they want. And the same thing with the treble. Without acoustic tuning, if you listen to a hybrid module, it does sound a little bright and sharp. But that gives the designer of the earphone latitude to shape the treble response however they want. If they want it a little brighter, which puts the vocals out in front, they can do it. If they want a good high frequency extension, but at a more moderate flat level, they can do that too. And all without amplification, only with signal reduction in those areas to sculpt the sound how they want. So we're starting to design transducers for that application, and these hybrid modules also reflect that. But the modules can be acoustically tuned as well. Is it common to use dampers in true wireless compared to in-ear monitors? Typically, no, for the reasons I just described. With the ability to shape the sound in the DSP, it's not really necessary to use acoustic dampers in the same way you do in a wired earphone. All right, I see. I work with audiophiles, want to make a custom in-ear monitor with a hybrid module and use NFC charging. So I think is the question that, is it compatible? Is it compatible with wireless charging? Yes, I mean, you have to be, when you design the charging system, and you just have to make sure everything is in the right place so you don't get magnetic interference. But we have, for example, if I grab the anchors, they've got magnets within them they snap into place into the charging dock. So this can be done. I recommend you work with our engineers when you're making such a design, so we make sure there are no compatibility issues. All right, when is the next webinar and the subject? This is the last of the 2 webinars I'm doing on this topic. The webinar recording will be made available though, so people can hear it afterwards. And there were also other multiple webinars that SELTECH sponsored. For Knowles, I did one on in-ear monitors and audiophile earphones, and another person at Knowles, Socket, did one on MEMS microphones, modern MEMS microphones and modern MEMS microphone applications, including MEMS microphones for true wireless. And those recordings will all be made available. All right, I think that's all for questions. I hope I answered them all. I'm quite willing to have a conversation afterwards if you like. So seeing no more, I'll wish you all good day and thank you for attending.